That's just my opinion. But hey, we wasn't all stuck in the Delta Quadrant, am I right?
It's draining our power. There goes the warp core, the fusion reactor, the main computer.
You know me, sometimes I like to shove in details that are surrounding the review, not really a part of the review, something to add context. I hadn't noticed, but apparently Crave, the subscription, the streaming service I was viewing Star Trek on, basically got rid of all of its Star Trek content, save for Strange New Worlds and Picard. The last two things I was watching, that's why I never really noticed what happened. How come we can't get Star Trek all in one place? Maybe that place now is Paramount Plus, which I'm on now. I sat down to watch up some Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 1, only to find out that there was no Lower Decks. And I had to quickly get a Paramount Plus subscription, so I'm on Paramount Plus. The Plus. Isn't that great? I just had to decide to give my piddly little amount of money to one company instead of another company, and then I can get all the Star Trek I want. How convenient. With that out of the way, this is tuvix, Twovix, not to be confused with Tuvix, which I believe was the title of a Voyager episode. This is not going to be a Voyager review, even though this is very much a Voyager episode. Your enjoyment on this episode may hinge a surprisingly large amount, depending on how much Voyager you've actually watched. If you haven't watched Voyager, I'm curious to see what you think about this, because a lot of these references, are you going to get them had you not seen Voyager? They even say deep cut in this episode, as in, wow, I can't believe I'm experiencing a real life reference. It's almost like I'm in an episode of Lower Decks or something. This is tuvix. Maybe you can guess what happens in this episode if you've seen the Voyager episode in question. With that out of the way, let's see what's going on in this episode. Right off the bat, I will say this episode had a few hearty laughs for me, and as long as I didn't take it too seriously, I was willing to go along for the ride. This episode, I think, is probably my favorite season opener for this series so far. I liked it better than Second Contact, Strange Energies, and whatever the season 3 first episode was. In my opinion, it is a common trope with Lower Decks that the first few episodes of a season aren't really that great. That's just my opinion. Actually, when the series started, I hated the first few episodes, but I learned to like it after a while, and going back, I realized it wasn't just me having to get used to it. Those first few episodes actually aren't that amazing. What are you doing? Lower Decks isn't a serious show. Don't take it seriously. Just go along for the ride and turn your brain off and have a few laughs. Yes, I'm walking a tightrope here with these reviews, but I would implore you to watch Wedge Dudge, watch Reflections. Lower Decks can work on many different fronts. It can work on the comedy, and it can work on the mythos level, the lore. It can work on the intrigue. It can work on thematic levels. When Lower Decks is hitting, it's hitting really hard. And when it's missing, it's at very least funny. So it's actually kind of a safe show. This episode, at first glance, you're going to look at this and say, wow, could this get any crazier? Actually, it's kind of a safe episode. Thematically, I didn't feel that much was going on. We're circling the wagons on a few different series-wide themes that we'll get into. This episode broaches a subject that I was wondering, how come we never did this before? Like you've heard me say before, whenever the audience says, I should have thought of that, that's usually a sign of a good episode, or a good idea for an episode at least. We have to go to a mysterious space station on a confidential mission. I'm not sure why it's confidential, just to add mystery for the audience. We need to go to a space station that... Am I crazy? Or does it kind of look like the caretaker array? I kept thinking caretaker array from the very beginning of Voyager. Maybe you didn't think that at all. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe I'm reading a bit too much into it. But we go to this space station, and we have to transport art, right? What is the greatest work of art in Starfleet history? Well, according to this episode, it's the Voyager. I hope this isn't another neutral zone thing. I hate the neutral zone. I know, right? I think we're just talking to the audience here. Comes out of nowhere. I'm not sure what really prompts this, but I really think that we're kind of throwing shade at the TNG episode Neutral Zone, which I don't hate. I'll watch it again here and there and have a good time. It's far from the worst, but if you watch this, did you feel like they were talking about that episode and not something that was, in universe for Lower Decks at that moment? They're going on this mission. They shove in a dig at the neutral zone. Am I crazy? Well, yes, but that's beside the point. The caretaker of the Voyager here, this art piece, how does it get to the museum? What a great idea, right? Finally, why did it take 3 seasons to figure this out? How do ships get to museums? Awesome idea for a show. Maybe that should have been the whole show. Starfleet Museums. Where we have a crew that just kind of goes onto these ships and just flies them to museums. Think of all the ships we could see. Oddly self-serving for me, just because I want to see ships. Maybe it wouldn't fly with the general public, but Beljo Tweakle, what a weird name. The individual looking after the Voyager here and facilitating its transport has converted the Voyager essentially into its own space-borne museum. You'll note that it has holodeck features all throughout the ship, which actually makes perfect sense. I like when things are fun. They seem like they're an idea designed entirely to create drama, action, fun, adventure, but yet they have a logical purpose. If you were in a museum, you would expect to be guided around by, if you could, holographic people to tell you what to look at. If you look to your immediate left, you can see these lizards from Threshold. If you look to your right, you can see, what was it called? Fairhaven. Was that where they went to in Voyager? That place where they learned to get bored of, frankly, being in Voyager, the show, that is, and decided to go to a totally different show. A lot of people hate it. I'm just okay on it. As someone who is not totally in love with Voyager, if you really love Voyager, maybe you'll like this episode more than I did. Although I didn't dislike this episode at all. We have to get Voyager to the museum. We have to get it to the surface, I believe, of Earth for its first leg of its voyage, which is being on the ground. A walk-in museum before it becomes an orbiting one. We have our own little skeleton crew from the Cerritos, and we're transporting the Voyager. And it's there in all of its glory. The music you expect, the visuals you expect. Purely at the surface detail level, you're getting Voyager action here. And we go on what amounts to, essentially, a museum for the audience, as well as for the characters. You see, it's double levels here. There's like a subtext to it. There's a wink, wink, a nudge, nudge. We know what we're doing here. But it never gets to the level of a message, a moral, or a theme. Again, that's just my opinion. But my love of a certain episode, any given episode, hinges a lot on these concepts. And this episode didn't really have it for me. I don't know if I'm coming back just for laughs, but I may come back for this adventure that we end up going on. Things go from bad to worse. You see, I'm just done. Billups, the engineer. I'm just finishing up calibrating the transporter. Hey, you want to ride back? To Doctor, to Anna. Okay, yeah, why not? If you've seen the episode Tuvix of Voyager, you would know about a certain plant. Okay? It has symbiogenic or symbiogenetic. I'm not up on all these biology terms. A property to it that causes people who go through the transporter with it and another organism to be combined. Has something to do with the way that this plant forms its offspring. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen that episode, and I didn't feel like watching it again just to review this. It's not the best episode of Voyager ever, but Voyager has a weird knack for having episodes that aren't famous, but infamous. Have you noticed this? And Tuvix was one of them. Without spoiling it, in the episode Tuvix, not to be confused with this one, of Voyager, a character called Neelix and a character called Tuvok are combined in the same way in the transporter. Oh, transporters. How many fun things have come about just because of transporters? How many doppelgangers have we gotten? How many transporters have sent us through time, sent us into space, and then disintegrated us? Yada yada yada. We create the character Tuvix in Voyager, and in this episode, we combined Anna and Billups to create Teillips. And I love funny words. Funny words are my thing. I love combining names to find strange combinations. And this episode had it in spades. We had Teillips meet Captain Dr. Migliman, which I think was Freeman and Dr. Miglimo. And I had a great time on that front. Just the visual aspect of combining people. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but if you know the episode of Voyager, spoilers for that episode, we essentially kill Tuvix, and in this episode, unfortunately, we're going to have to end up killing Teillips. We've combined people together into one person, a lust for life, that we have to stamp out, because we need to get the two original people back. Interesting, isn't it? But this time, we're not stuck in the Delta Quadrant. So, what happens next? We go through Catherine Janeway's log. Uh-oh. I think, well, just looking at your logs here, Janeway, I think maybe you should have been court-martialed. Maybe, but that's just my opinion. But hey, we wasn't all stuck in the Delta Quadrant, am I right? I guess we have that out. But we're on our way back to Earth, so can't we just wait till we get to Earth? I believe Shaxs says something like that. By the way, Teillips, how much memory do you have of, like, physical stuff? Wink, wink. If you know, you know. This episode is essentially just one plot. We're just in a well-contained, good, bottle ship episode. A plot, 1, 2, 3, rising action, resolution. Well-made story. We're not breaking the bank on any one kind of avenue, maybe apart from the visual gag zone, but as a pretext to this episode, Boimler is looking at potentially having a promotion. What are the chances something could go historically wrong here, right? It's only lower decks. Surely nothing is going to go horribly wrong, right? Well, it does go wrong. Inspecting Voyager, along with Tweakle, Beljo, whatever his name was, we do get to see the bio-neural packs. Voyager's gross like that. There's biological things going on in Voyager. I've never been a huge fan of the ship having biological organic parts. Not really my thing. I'm more of a nuts and bolts kind of guy. But, hey, it's playing within the canon of Voyager, and we're dropping little hints about what's going to happen next. Behind one of these packs, a giant macrovirus sneaks out. Don't worry, we're inoculated. But it's like this big, and it's like strangling Boimler. So I think maybe there's a difference between getting sick and being strangled and dying for want of oxygen. But Boimler, you just lost your promotion, buddy. He ducks down and lets the macrovirus get through the door. And now the macroviruses are all over the ship. One of many instances where you may ask yourself, we really should have cleaned up Voyager, shouldn't we? Did we really look at this before we, mothballed it, before we, boxed it up? There's kind of things going crazy on this ship. Beljo? Maybe you're a little sloppy. Letting the macroviruses infest the ship, letting a Borg nanite fly around, as we learn later. One of these macroviruses is hiding behind one of the Borg alcoves, knocks it over. Beljo's trapped under it. Help me, I can feel it trying to regenerate me. They're left on. A single Borg nanite assimilates the macrovirus somehow, and then the macrovirus self-divides itself, creating more Borg nanites. We have essentially Borgified the ship, in a manner of speaking. After it came back from the Delta Quadrant, after everything it did, we still managed to Borgify the ship. Way to go, Cerritos crew, but I'll be damned if it wasn't funny. Now the ship is totally under board control, or macrovirus control, or tuvix's control, because everybody's getting tuvixed to ellipse first. How do I help save myself against being murdered by the captain? Well, I can make more tuvixes. I can tuvix some more people. I can get people on my side. If more people are like me, they're more willing to fight for my side to not get divided again. Oh, I love being alive. Separating you means killing you, right? So, we trick the captain into going into a site-to-site transport that combines the captain with Dr. Miglimo, along with that little orchid thingy that had escaped from some transport cart. Great job, Bell Joe, getting that under control. Is he the real villain of this episode? We have a whole team of Tuvix-style people. You'll note our new character, T'Lyn. They waste no time in introducing her into the party here. Is she going to be like our new character for Lower Decks? Is she going to be at the same level as, like, say, Rutherford or Tendi? I don't know. But she was a fan favorite when she first showed up in Season 2, and Season 3, sadly, was already underway when we realized the popularity of that character, and therefore that character was not heavily present in Season 3. But now T'Lyn is here in full force. I would hope so, because I really like T'Lyn. It's interesting that we finally have a character who can just kind of play it straight. Like we have, what do they call it, a foil for other characters? A character who isn't so in on the whole crazy thing, isn't totally nuts like our lower deckers that we've come to know and love, depending on who you ask. What are we going to do here? We're trapped on this ship, Rutherford, Tendi, T'Lyn, Boimler. We got to come up with a plan here. Rutherford, I have to break the Voyager. I'm an engineer. I can fix things. Just do it in reverse. I can break stuff too. And it ultimately ends up being the cheese that in Voyager in one episode, spoilers, that Neelix had that got the Voyager sick when it infected the bioneural gel packs. Because cheese, of course, is like a bacterial culture. Cheese is kind of freaky. If you like cheese, maybe don't look it up. But cheese is kind of a strange type of food, if we can call it that. And this ends up being how we get the Voyager sick, disabling the computer, and turning off the horrifying black and white clown creatures that have been haunting my memory and nightmares since I saw it in Voyager. That character from Fairhaven, I think it was, and Dr. Chaotica or what? Chaotica? Remember that the villain from the black and white, what would you call it? Live action, old timey sci-fi serials that Paris and the gang used to get involved with. Boimler gets his win. I'm the son of Captain Proton. Blah blah blah, and this is enough to distract Chaotica while the computer goes basically downsies because Rutherford cheesed it up. We cheesed it up. Now it's down flat, and we're basically home free. We've turned off all these errant programs, and we've deborgified the ship. We created the problem, but we also solved the problem. As for our tuvix characters, T'Lyn transports them all into the same site-to-site transport, by the way, into the same transporter pad, creating a giant meatball of, 10 different crew members. And you would probably be thinking, hey, we're not in the Delta Quadrant. There must be a better way. How can we separate these people without just killing the merged individual? We just do the same thing again. Except that we somehow kind of smooth it over because Tendi says, oh no, I can identify them by their personalities, so we can divide them that way. T'Lyn can identify the DNA, but Tendi for some reason can identify the personalities, and somehow you can see this in the amalgam of all these characters, the giant meat mass. Not funny, not interesting, not clever. You'll note that the solutions in this episode, one with dividing people the way we did, the same as in the Voyager episode. That solution is the same as it was in Voyager, essentially, except we just can't talk to this meat mound. We don't know what it's thinking. We're not psychic. It's not saying anything. That doesn't mean isn't saying don't kill me. We don't know. Tendi is somehow able to smooth it over in her mind, though, because it no longer looks like a person. Therefore, we don't have to worry about it, right? And also the cheese solution. We make the Voyager sick by using Neelix's cheese, which had already happened in Voyager. So we create problems, and we just solve them in ways that we've already seen in Voyager. There's nothing new. It wasn't clever. It didn't make me say, wow, why didn't I think of that? You know, in a way, it's kind of a very Voyager solution. Let's just technobabble our way out of this. We'll solve the sci-fi problem with like another weird sci-fi solution. I don't know. Maybe I'm taking it too seriously. Because the laughs, like I said, kind of kept coming. I was enjoying myself. Am I wrong to overthink it like this? Again, I would say we've had episodes that frankly reward overthinking. Like I said before, Wedge Dudge, Reflections, just to name a few. Those happen to be my favorites. But I'm sure there's lots of others that just don't come to mind right now. I don't feel like going back through every single episode just for this review. We get the Voyager safely back to Earth. Hopefully without the Borg nanite. Hopefully we did a good cleaning job. And we got a few more little exhibits in the Voyager Museum to honor the heroes who saved the Voyager from the problem that they basically created. Or was it Beljo? Who forgot that macro virus in there? How long has it been there? Getting a little sloppy. We have our little ceremony at the end. Promotions all around. Boimler's promoted first, even though Ransom seemed like he was lording over him this entire episode. Everything's your fault here, Boimler. You let the organism free. I don't know why it was his fault that it was left there. He let it go, but I mean, I'd be pretty scared of a flying macro virus too, wouldn't you? We're only human after all, I think. But he gets a promotion anyway. So, from whence did the whole Ransom subplot come from? I don't know. Mariner got a promotion, to her dismay. A plot line I'm getting very tired of. It's been going on since the first episode, and we're in season 4 now. I'm tired of the whole will she, won't she idea of ranking up and getting responsibility. Let's just treat these characters like normal from now on, can we? Let's just promote them. Let's not worry about it. I don't need any more plots about Mariner saying, I don't want the responsibility, I don't want to rank up, blah, blah, blah. I was tired of that last season, and I'm double tired of it now. And let's just move on, shall we? Tendi gets her promotion, but you'll note that Rutherford didn't, even though he figured out basically how to save the day by using the cheese to break Voyager. I saw the episode after this, so, you know, this is an episode review for the premiere episode. But in the next episode, something else happens with Rutherford that we're not going to get into, but the review for that episode will be coming shortly. I originally intended just to watch the first episode of this season, but I got greedy and ended up watching the second one. For whatever reason, we had 2 episodes drop on the same day. Maybe that's not that great considering there could be a lull in Star Trek content coming soon. I don't know when Discovery Season 5 is coming. I don't know when Prodigy Season 2 is coming. So we could have a little bit of a vacation coming up. Just like we just did after Strange New Worlds Season 2. But this is Lower Decks Season 4. And it's not without the whole Ransom and Mariner subplot. Hey, why did you promote me? Blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't have promoted me. I can't do these things. I'm a loser. I can't grow up because I'm Mariner. Whatever. But at the end of this episode, they knew how to get me intrigued. A mysterious ship attacks a Klingon vessel. We don't know what this ship is. And taking a page out of Wedge Dudge, we're playing it straight, showing an alien vessel and showing the dialogue between the characters on this vessel. Kind of like we're showing what goes on in Star Trek behind the scenes. the things that we don't see, the things that are not in the Federation. Play it straight, but crank it up a little bit. And we get a big funny factor, right? That's why I love the episode Wedge Dudge. And we're taking a page out of it. We're taking T'Lyn out of that episode, and we're also taking a kind of plot line. We're just showing the Klingon vessel on its day-to-day activities, except this time we meet a mysterious alien vessel. It approaches, very spooky looking, strange design. I have a few theories that I won't disclose here, but it looks like it attacks the ship with some kind of new type of weapon mounted on the aft section, and it comes up like this, and then shoots. You got me. So I don't know how you did it. I don't know how Lower Decks did it, but they got me intrigued somehow. I mean, I'm tired of all these galaxy-ending things, but if this is a new enemy to contend with, I'm on board. Just because you presented an interesting-looking ship doing something interesting in a kind of creepy way. Maybe I'm fickle like that. We're just relearning old lessons. We're learning about responsibility. We're learning about taking charge. Boimler's learning about saving Voyager without Mariner because Mariner is gooped up by a macrovirus. And then Ransom saw that on video and then promoted her. What's that about? I'm just going to leave it at that. Maybe you can get something more out of this thematically than I could. But this is Lower Decks, and I'm not willing to really judge it that hard on that front. Visually, we get the Voyager, the Intrepid class. We get to see this macro flying virus thing floating around. We get to see robotic lizards from Threshold. We get to see so many different references to Voyager, deep cuts, as it were. Does references an episode make? That's the question you're going to have to ask yourself. For me, I'm going to go with a good on the visual front. I love seeing the Intrepid class, and I'm glad they came up with a reasonable explanation for why it's present in this episode. Ships do have to get to museums. It's surprisingly uncontrived. And frankly, I hope we see this type of plotline again. Let's bring 3 or 4 new ships to a museum. Why not? Let's just do it again with other ships. Why not? Is that too much to ask? Would you get bored of that? I know I surely wouldn't. Musically, you get the Voyager theme. You get the Lower Decks theme. I wouldn't call it exactly an all-you-can-eat buffet, but there's kind of some smorgasbord action with the musical front, if I must say. I love hearing Voyager themes. I love hearing the Voyager motif sneak in here and there. And the Lower Decks music, overall, is usually a joy to behold. And it's on display here. So, our plot, not as contrived as it could have been, but you'll wonder how exactly Tweakle, Beljo, whatever his name was, got away with such a suspiciously poor job of cleaning the Voyager. I think it was his job. We're flying this to a museum, first on the ground and then in orbit. You may wonder why they didn't take a little bit more care in doing this. You may wonder how we allowed an errant Borg nanite to fly around the ship unimpeded. But are you willing to fault this episode so much for its plot if you're getting a good laugh? I thought it was funny. I think that's what's most important. So, with all that out of the way, I'm going to have to go ahead and give this episode a 6 out of 10. I thought it was an enjoyable episode. I had some serious fun, and we got a serious adventure with the Lower Decks crew on the Voyager. What's up next for our characters in Lower Decks? Season 4, Episode 2. I've already seen it because they dropped 2 episodes, so a review is forthcoming. But there's your premiere episode. I would venture a guess that this is my favorite premiere season-style episode for this whole show. I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you very shortly when we review Episode 2 of Season 4 of Lower Decks. So long.